There is a moment in life when you begin to feel something slipping inside you long before anyone notices it from the outside. A moment when the strength you once carried so naturally starts to fade, like a light dimming in a room you are still standing in, and you try to pretend nothing changed. You still tie your shoes, you still carry the groceries, you still lift your arms to reach the top shelf. Yet every gesture feels heavier than the last, as if the world quietly added weight to the simplest movements without warning, and you realize that what once belonged to you without effort now demands negotiation, patience, and sometimes defeat. It is not the kind of decline that announces itself with drama. It arrives softly, almost politely disguised as a night of bad sleep or a day when your legs ache for no reason, and then another and another until it becomes a rhythm your body follows without your permission. And there is something deeply unsettling in feeling your strength retreat because it does not ask if you are ready. It does not wait for a better moment. It simply leaves in small portions, like grains of sand falling through fingers you did not know were open. You start to notice it in mundane moments no one else would think twice about. Climbing stairs becomes a quiet negotiation with your breath lifting a suitcase. Feels like a test you did not study for, and rising from a chair is no longer automatic, but a calculated movement that reveals a stiffness you prefer not to name. And the strangest part is how these tiny defeats gather around you, forming an invisible circle that only you can see, a circle that whispers, "You are not who you used to be," even if you still carry the memories of who you were. There are mornings when you wake up and feel the weight of your own body, as if gravity chose you specifically to press harder upon, and it is in these small, silent confrontations with your physical limits that a deeper truth begins to shape itself inside your chest. The truth that losing strength is not only about muscles or energy, it is about identity. It is about the quiet fear that the person you once were is stepping back into the shadows, while another version of you emerges, one that moves slower, one that tires faster, one that must renegotiate every promise made by youth. Maybe you remember a time when you could walk for hours without feeling the slightest tremor in your knees, when your hands were steady, when your back carried weight without protest, when your heartbeat felt like a steady drum still full of possibility. But now even simple things like opening a jar or bending to pick something up from the floor feel like a reminder that time has been watching you closely, taking careful notes. And there is something humbling and almost cruel in realizing that your own body, the home you trusted, has begun to contradict you. And yet the pain of this recognition is not only physical, it settles in the soul as a strange nostalgia for yourself, a longing for a version of you that is gone but still alive in memory, like seeing an old photograph of your younger face and wondering how someone so familiar feels so unreachable. You begin to feel like you are slowly saying goodbye. Not in one dramatic moment, but in countless, subtle ways every day, a tiny farewell, every weakness, a quiet wave from the distance, and you carry this knowledge alone. Because speaking of, it feels like admitting defeat in a world that punishes vulnerability. People around you rarely. Notice they still assume you are strong. They still expect the same pace, the same stamina, the same resilience, and you nod, you smile, you try to keep up because there is pride in pretending and fear in confessing. But deep down, you know that something inside you has begun to dissolve, something you once relied on without thinking. And this realization brings a solitude that is difficult to name, a solitude that lives inside your skin. But there is also a strange clarity that grows in this hidden struggle and awareness that perhaps losing strength does not simply take something away. It also reveals what remains beneath the surface. It strips the noise, the excess, the illusions, leaving you face to face with the essence of who you are becoming. And while this truth can feel like a wound, it also holds a quiet and unexpected light, a light that softens the edges of your fear and teaches you to see yourself with a gentler honesty. If you have ever felt this slow departure of your own strength, this subtle fading that no one else comments on, but you feel in every joint, in every breath, in every hesitant step, share a piece of your story below and subscribe so your voice finds a place where it will not be ignored. There comes a time when life begins to slow down without asking you even the smallest permission, and it happens so quietly that you only notice it long after the change has already settled inside your days, like someone rearranging your home while you sleep, moving objects inch by inch until you wake up, and suddenly, nothing feels familiar anymore. And at first, you blame tiredness or a heavy week or the cold weather that always makes your joints complain. But then you start to see a pattern forming. Beneath the excuses, a subtle shift in the rhythm of your movements, as if your body had begun listening to a different kind of clock. You notice it when morning arrives, and getting out of bed feels like crossing a threshold. Your body takes its time to agree with the day, and the world already seems to be running ahead of you. And even the sunlight feels impatient knocking at the window while you still try to gather yourself. And there is an ache in realizing that what used to be automatic now requires negotiations, small conversations between your muscles and your mind, asking for cooperation, asking for patience, asking for understanding. And sometimes those conversations come with a kind of silence you did not expect. There are moments when you catch yourself staring at objects you used to grab without thinking, like a bag on the floor, or laundry waiting in a basket, and you feel your mind calculating the effort needed, weighing the discomfort, deciding if the movement is worth the pain. And this quiet pause becomes a habit, an invisible ritual repeated throughout the day, and soon you realize that your entire routine has been rearranged around these new micro-hesitations. And the strangest part is that no one else sees them. No one else knows how long it takes you to rise from a chair, or how carefully you choose the steps you take. And then there is the house, the familiar rooms that once echoed with noise and movement, and now feel strangely still, a stillness that grows louder each year, as if the walls themselves are listening to your slow pace and adjusting to it. And sometimes you walk through your home and sense that time settled there too, sitting in the corners like dust on old shelves, and you feel as though the house is aging with you, both of you moving a little slower, both of you holding memories you cannot speak out loud. And this companionship between your body and your home carries a bittersweet tenderness. Life slowing down does not happen only in your steps. It seeps into your voice, into your thoughts, into the way you wait for the kettle to boil, or how long you remain seated after finishing a meal. And suddenly you are aware that your hands rest longer on the table, your eyes linger on the window a little more, and these pauses start to reveal a kind of loneliness that does not come from being alone, but from feeling out of sync with the speed of the world outside, a world that rushes past your window as if it cannot see you anymore. You begin to remember how things felt when everything was fast, when you could cross an entire town in a day without checking your breath, when you could climb stairs 2 at a time and laugh while doing it. And memories like these arrive unexpectedly while you fold a towel or wait for the light to turn green, and they strike with the sharpness of nostalgia, because they remind you of a version of yourself that moved through space with certainty and ease, and now you feel almost like a ghost watching the world pass through you, instead of with you. Sometimes you wonder when exactly it happened, the shift from effortless speed to careful slowness. Was it after a fall that left a bruise you did not forget? Was it after a winter when your bones ached longer than usual? Was it after losing someone who used to move beside you, giving your days a natural rhythm you never had to create alone? And maybe there is no clear moment, no single cause. Perhaps life simply moved your name from one list to another, from the list of those who run to the list of those who steady their hands on the railing before climbing a step. Yet within this slowness, there is also a new way of noticing things, a way you never had when life moved fast. You start to see the way sunlight rests on the coffee table. You hear the small sounds of your own house that once blended into the background. You feel the quiet weight of your breath. And even though this awareness is sometimes painful, it also frees a depth inside you, a depth that only appears when everything else becomes still. And maybe this stillness is not only a loss. Maybe it is also an invitation to look at yourself with a clarity you once avoided. And if you have felt this shift, if you have noticed your movements stretching longer, your days unfolding in pauses, your body insisting on a tempo the world does not care to match, leave a comment sharing what changed first for you, and subscribe, so this space can continue to welcome the truths you rarely say out loud. There is a particular kind of pain, that Simone Weil understood long before most people dare to look at it directly. A kind of suffering that does not arrive with screams or dramatic moments, but with a quiet weight that presses on the soul until it becomes part of your breathing. And she believed that this weight is not merely a burden, but a form of knowledge, a mirror that shows you the truth of your own humanity in a way comfort never can. And when you reach the age where life has already taken more from you than it gives you, begin to realize how profoundly her words settle into the spaces you rarely let anyone see. Simone spoke about affliction as something deeper than pain, deeper than sadness, something that reaches into the core of your dignity and shifts the way you understand the world. And maybe you have felt this too, not as a philosophical idea, but as something lived in the small, private hours when you sit alone in your kitchen long after the dishes are washed, and you suddenly feel the weight of your own existence resting on your shoulders like a coat you never chose to wear. And in that moment, the room feels different. The air feels thicker. The silence grows a contour almost like a presence watching you. She believed that true suffering leaves a mark not on the skin, but on the interior landscape of a person, reshaping the way they see everything around them. And perhaps this is why the older we become, the easier it is to recognize this invisible geography inside ourselves, the map of losses, the valleys of exhaustion, the steep hills of memories that still ache when you walk through them, even decades later. And it is in this internal territory that Simone Weil found something that frightened and fascinated her. The idea that pain can strip us of illusions, like a wind stripping leaves from a tree, revealing the bare truth underneath. There is a moment in life when you realize that suffering no longer shocks you. It simply arrives and sits with you like an old acquaintance, someone who knows your habits, someone who does not need to knock. And this familiarity is not comforting. It is profound and unsettling because it means that pain stopped being an interruption and became a language, one you learned slowly without noticing. And now you speak it fluently in your thoughts, in your silences, in the way you lower your eyes when someone asks how you are doing. Simone once wrote that the greatest truths are only revealed to those who have been broken open by life, and maybe that is why you sometimes feel that the deepest parts of yourself were not shaped by joy or success, but by the moments you thought you would not survive, the disappointments that hollowed you out, the losses that carved themselves into your ribs, the betrayals that taught you caution and silence. And there is almost a strange purity in recognizing that these experiences did not just wound you, they educated you in a language that only the deeply human understand. Think of the times you carried pain alone, not because you wanted to, but because no one seemed able to understand the weight of it. The nights when you sat in the dark and felt the world growing distant. The days when your chest tightened for reasons you could not explain. The hours spent pretending everything was normal because the truth would be too heavy for others to hear. These are the moments where the teachings of Simone Weil live without books, without quotes, without philosophy. They live directly in the bruised layers of your existence. She believed that suffering could purify the soul by removing everything unnecessary, leaving only what is real and essential. And while this idea can sound harsh or even cruel, there is something eerily accurate about it, because you know that the person you were in your youth could not have survived the life you have lived. The younger you was too soft, too trusting, too hopeful. And it was only through the slow pressure of time, the disappointments that took your breath, the losses that bent your spine, that you became someone capable of seeing life without the bright filters you once relied on. There is a strange clarity that comes with age, a clarity born not from wisdom, but from fatigue, the kind of fatigue that teaches you to look at things without embellishment, without excuses. And this perspective can feel heavy, but it can also feel honest. Because when the illusions fall away, you start to understand the true shape of your life, the people who stayed, the ones who disappeared, the dreams that mattered, and the ones that were simply distractions. And in this understanding, something quiet begins to form inside you, a new strength, a new gentleness, a new awareness. And perhaps this is why Simone Weil speaks so loudly to those who have lived long enough to be cracked open by time, because she does not tell you to be strong. She does not tell you to overcome. She simply acknowledges that pain changes you in ways that are irreversible. And in that acknowledgement, there is a kind of companionship, a recognition that You are not strange or weak for feeling the way you do. You are simply human in the most profound sense. If any part of this truth has ever lived in you, if you have felt pain not as a moment, but as a landscape, share your experience in the comments and consider subscribing so that this space continues to honor the kinds of truths most people keep hidden in silence. There comes a moment in life when you begin to notice a strange separation between your body and your inner self, a quiet divide that was not there before, as if the two no longer move in harmony, but in parallel lines that refuse to meet. And you feel this most clearly in the mornings, when your mind wakes up quickly, full of thoughts, memories, desires, a restless spark still alive inside you, while your body rises slowly, protesting with aches, stiffness, and an exhaustion that feels older than you are. It is a strange experience because the soul does not age. The soul refuses to follow the rules of time. Your inner voice still feels young. You still imagine possibilities with the same intensity you once had. You still feel unexpected waves of longing, curiosity, tenderness, and wonder. But when you try to act on these feelings, you realize that your body no longer moves with the same urgency. And what used to be effortless now feels like walking through mud. And this disconnect becomes one of the most painful secrets of getting older. You might notice it when you hear a song from your youth and you feel that electric impulse to dance only, to stand up and sense your back stiffening before you even take the first step, or when someone invites you for a walk and your heart says yes before your knees remind you that the distance you once loved now feels like a challenge, and this mismatch between desire and ability creates a quiet grief that few people talk about because it is not dramatic. It is slow, almost invisible, happening in the small moments that accumulate into a truth you cannot ignore. There are days when you look in the mirror and feel a kind of shock, not because you dislike what you see, but because the reflection does not match the person speaking inside you. The eyes carry stories, but the skin carries time, and the contrast between them creates a strange tenderness, a bittersweet recognition that life has shaped you in ways your younger self could never imagine. And you stand there wondering when exactly the transformation occurred, when you crossed the invisible line between feeling ageless and feeling mortal. Sometimes, you catch yourself remembering details of your younger body, the lightness in your feet, the speed in your thoughts, the glow in your skin, the feeling of waking up without any pain, and you wonder if you appreciated those sensations, or if you moved through them blindly believing they would last forever. Because the truth is that no one prepares you for the quiet grief of losing not your health, but your physical ease, the simple comfort of being in a body that obeyed you without negotiation. And yet, inside you, there is still a restless flame, a pulse that refuses to dim the part of you that still dreams, that still hungers for experiences, that still imagines new beginnings even when your body insists on slowing down. And this inner youth can be both a blessing and a curse, because it fills you with desire, but also reminds you that time is no longer something you can outrun. It has settled into your joints, your breath, your bones, leaving traces you cannot erase. Simone Weil believed that the body is a vessel, and the soul is the true traveler. And maybe that is why the older we get, the more we feel this contradiction. The vessel ages, the traveler does not. And this creates a tension you feel in moments of silence when your mind still races with possibilities, while your hands shake slightly when holding a cup of tea, or when your heart beats faster with an emotion your body struggles to absorb. And this tension can make you feel fragmented, as if you were living two lives at once, the life of who you are inside and the life of what your body has become. There is also an unexpected vulnerability that comes with this disconnection, a vulnerability that makes you more aware of yourself, more exposed in ways you never imagined when you were younger. Because back then your body felt like armor, something that protected you, supported you, allowed you to move freely. Now it feels more like a fragile companion, one you must care for constantly, one you must negotiate with, one you must carry with tenderness and patience. And there is something profoundly human in learning to love a body that no longer performs in the ways it once did. But this vulnerability also brings a strange kind of beauty, a beauty that has nothing to do with appearance and everything to do with authenticity. Because when your body slows down, you begin to notice things. Your younger self rushed past the softness in another person's eyes, the weight of silence after a difficult memory, the warmth of a hand placed gently on your shoulder, the meaning hidden in small gestures, the truth that what stays with us is rarely what we could do, but who we became when things were no longer easy. If you have ever felt this separation between the youth inside you and the age in your bones, if you have ever stood between the desire to run and the reality of moving, slowly share your experience in the comments and subscribe, so this space can continue holding these truths that so often go unspoken but live deeply within us all. There is a quiet mistake that almost everyone makes without noticing it, a mistake that grows slowly over the years, like a shadow stretching across your life, until one day it touches everything you are and everything you have lost along the way. And this mistake is the belief that there would always be more time, that the things you postponed would wait for you patiently, that the dreams you placed on the shelf would stay untouched, that the people you kept at a distance would still be there when you finally reached for them. It is strange how easily we convince ourselves that life will make room for what we delay, as if the world were keeping track of our intentions instead of our actions. And maybe you remember moments from your past when you told yourself, "I will do it later. I will say it tomorrow. I will try when things feel easier, later tomorrow." Easier. These words become a kind of spell, an illusion that shields you from discomfort while quietly stealing pieces of your future until one day you look back and realize that the path behind you is missing. Entire chapters you meant to live but never did. You can see this mistake in the small decisions that seemed harmless at the time. Choosing work over a conversation, choosing comfort over courage, choosing silence over vulnerability. And these choices accumulate like dust. They look insignificant in the moment, but over the years they form a thick layer that covers the parts of yourself you were meant to explore. And it happens so gradually that you do not see the loss until it is already too late, and you begin to wonder how many versions of your life you abandoned just to stay safe. There are people who spend decades waiting for the right moment to start something new, to apologize to someone they hurt, to forgive someone who broke them, to allow themselves to feel joy without guilt. And they tell themselves that maturity will bring clarity, that age will bring courage, that time itself will offer the perfect opening. But the truth is that time does not grant opportunities. It simply watches how you use the ones you already had, and sometimes it watches silently as you let them slip away. Think of the dreams you once carried with the full weight of your heart, the things you promised your younger self you would one day accomplish. Perhaps you wanted to travel, or write, or begin again, somewhere far from the place where you learned to hide. Perhaps you wanted to reconnect with someone you loved, or speak a truth that lived inside you for years, and yet something held you back. Responsibilities, fears, doubts. The quiet voice whispering, "You have time." And little by little those promises faded, not because they no longer mattered, but because you had postponed them too many times. The cruel part is that you rarely notice the exact moment when postponing becomes giving up. You simply wake up one day and realize that some doors have closed quietly without making a sound. And this realization sits heavily in the chest because you know that you did not lose these moments to tragedy or fate. You lost them to waiting, and the hardest truth is that waiting can be more dangerous than any mistake because it convinces you that your life will bend itself to your hesitation. Simone Weil believed that one of the greatest errors a person can make is to live inattentively, to move through existence as if life were a rehearsal rather than the actual performance. And this inattentiveness is the soil where regret grows. It allows days to pass without meaning, choices to be made without intention, words to remain unspoken, memories to remain unlived. And then later, when you finally stop to reflect, you see the empty spaces, the life shaped by everything you meant to do, but never dared to begin. And there is something profoundly painful in recognizing that your greatest losses may not be the things life took from you, but the things you withheld from yourself. The love you did not express, the risks you never took, the forgiveness you delayed, the joy you felt, but never followed the truth you swallowed so many times it began to taste like silence. And the weight of this understanding can feel heavier than any external setback. because it comes from within. Yet even in this heaviness, there is a strange kind of clarity, a clarity that whispers that you do not need to live the rest of your life the way you lived the part that is already behind you. And sometimes acknowledging the mistake is the beginning of repairing it, the first moment of awakening after years of moving on autopilot. And perhaps this is what makes the mistake so important to recognize, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it, and you begin to feel an urge, a pull, a stirring inside you that reminds you of the person you were meant to be. If any part of this truth echoes inside you, if you recognize this quiet mistake in the corners of your own life, I invite you to share your thoughts below and subscribe so your voice becomes part of a space where these hidden truths can be spoken with honesty and without shame. There comes a moment in life when the silence around you begins to feel heavier than any sound you have ever known. A silence that does not comfort, that does not guide, that does not answer, even when you stand there with your heart open, waiting for something, anything that might explain why the heaviness in your chest keeps returning. And this silence becomes even more unsettling because it arrives precisely when you need clarity the most, when your questions grow sharper, when your fears grow louder, and when the confusion inside you starts to feel like a storm without wind. It is difficult to explain this kind of silence to someone who has never felt it, because it is not simply the absence of noise. It is an atmosphere, a presence of something unseen that fills the room even when you are completely alone. And perhaps you know this feeling too. The nights when you sit on the edge of your bed with the lights off staring at nothing, because the weight inside you feels too large to hold, and you whisper something into the air, not a prayer exactly, not even a request, but a kind of surrender, and yet nothing answers, nothing moves, nothing shifts. Simone Weil believed that this silence was not a punishment, but a form of attention, a difficult truth, because most of us want to feel held when we are hurting, not tested, not stripped bare, not forced to stand inside our own emptiness. But she understood something that only those who have lived through deep suffering can understand: the silence that follows. Pain can reveal more about our inner life than any comforting voice ever could, because when the world stops speaking, you begin to hear yourself with a sharpness that can be both frightening and awakening. There are moments when you ask the universe why the answers take so long, why the direction remains unclear, why every attempt to understand your own path dissolves into uncertainty, and instead of clarity, all you receive is the echo of your own breath. And in this echo, you begin to notice things you never paid attention to before: the way your fears repeat the same story, the way your regrets stay close to your ribs, the way your memories surface at the most unexpected times as if they are asking to be finally acknowledged. Many people imagine that if there is any higher presence in their lives, it would speak with certainty, offering guidance or comfort or reassurance. Yet life rarely works that way. And the older you become, the more you realize that the silence you receive is not abandonment. It is an invitation, an uncomfortable invitation, to look at the parts of yourself you were too busy or too afraid to meet face to face, because silence makes it impossible to escape your own truths. And perhaps that is why it feels so unbearable at first. Think of the times you felt most lost, those moments when you stood in your kitchen or lay awake in the dark, or sat in your car before going inside the house, and you whispered something into the quiet: "Please give me a sign. Please help me understand. Please tell me what I am supposed to do." And the air around you remained still, the room unchanged, the world indifferent. And yet within that stillness, something slowly began to move, not outside, but inside. The smallest shift in your awareness, the faintest recognition that your answer might not arrive in words, but in endurance. Simone Weil believed that the silence we fear is a refining fire, because it forces us to separate what is essential from what is merely noise. And you might have noticed this too. The way silence reveals who you truly are, the way it unclutters your thoughts, removing everything superficial, the way it highlights the wounds you tried to bury, the way it shows you that your strength is not in the moments you felt supported, but in the moments you learned to stand alone. And there is something strangely liberating in realizing that your resilience was born, not in comfort, but in the void left by this silence. There is also a profound vulnerability in admitting that sometimes you want someone or something to speak to you clearly, to lift the veil, to reassure you that you are not walking blindly through life. And yet, the silence persists, and with time, you start to understand that maybe silence is not an absence, but a mirror that forces you to see the questions you have avoided, the decisions you postponed, the emotions you numbed, the dreams you suffocated to survive. And as painful as this reflection can be, it carries the seed of transformation. In this quiet space, you begin to recognize the parts of yourself that still ache for meaning, the fears that have shaped your choices, the wounds you carry from years ago, the desires you pretend not to feel, the strength you forget you have. And maybe this is why silence can feel so cruel at first, because it brings every hidden truth to the surface, demanding to be faced without distraction, without excuses, without escape. And yet within this confrontation, there is something sacred, something that deepens your sense of existence in a way that noise never could. If you have ever known this kind of silence, the one that arrives not to comfort you, but to strip away everything unnecessary, leaving you with only your truest self, share your experience in the comments and subscribe in your own time, so this space can continue welcoming voices like yours, voices that carry depth, honesty, and the quiet strength born from surviving what could not be, spoken aloud. There is a truth most people spend their entire lives avoiding, a truth that hides beneath routines and habits and polite conversations, a truth that waits patiently for the moment when you are finally quiet enough to feel it rising from the center of your chest. And that truth is this: no one is coming to save you, not from your loneliness, not from your memories, not from the weight you carry in silence. And for many people, this realization arrives like a blow, because for years, they held onto the idea that someone would eventually understand them completely, that someone would show up at the perfect moment and lift them out of the darkness they kept tucked behind their smile. It is painful to admit this, because so much of childhood and even adulthood is built around the subtle belief that help will come, that life owes you some sort of rescue, that someone out there holds the missing piece that makes everything easier. And maybe you remember moments when you truly believed this, when you thought a partner or a friend or even time itself would heal the wounds you did not know how to face, and you waited. You hoped, you convinced yourself that the right person or the right day or the right turning point would appear like a lighthouse in the fog, guiding you back to yourself. But the older you become, the more you witness the quiet collapse of these expectations. You see relationships end without closure. You see friends turn into strangers. You see people promise understanding and then disappear right when you needed them the most. And slowly, you begin to learn a truth that feels almost cruel. At first, the world is full of people who care, but very few who can carry your pain with you. And even the ones who try cannot do the deep work that must happen inside you, because that work is too intimate, too specific, too rooted in your own history for anyone else to complete. There is a moment when you look back at your life and realize how many times you handed your healing to someone else, hoping they would fix you, how many times you waited for apologies that never came, or validation that never arrived, or comfort that never reached you. And these invisible weights become a kind of prison, a chain made not of metal, but of expectation. And you move through your days dragging those expectations behind you until you finally understand that the freedom you long for cannot come from someone else placing a key in your hand. It comes from you deciding to stop waiting. Simone Weil understood this. Harshly and deeply, she believed that no external source could resolve the interior fractures of a human being, and that while compassion is precious, it cannot substitute the responsibility each person carries for their own transformation. And maybe you have felt the truth of this in your own moments of despair, when someone tried to console you with words, but the ache still lingered untouched like a stone in your chest. Or when someone offered advice, but it felt shallow because the root of your pain was too old, too deep, too tightly woven into your identity for surface comfort to reach it. There is something strangely liberating in acknowledging that you are the only one who can walk through your internal landscape, the only one who can reach into the dark corners where old wounds still pulse quietly, the only one who can untangle the knots formed by years of silence and fear and disappointment. Because once you accept that no rescue is coming, you stop looking outward and begin to look inward. And this shift, although terrifying, at first becomes the beginning of strength, the beginning of clarity, the beginning of reclaiming the parts of yourself you abandoned while waiting for someone else to save them. Think of the times you found strength without expecting, to the nights you endured alone when you thought you would break, and yet something in you refused to fall apart. The mornings you got out of bed despite the weight pressing on your chest. The days you made decisions that no one understood but were necessary for your survival. These moments reveal something important. You have already saved yourself many times before you simply never recognized it, because you were too busy grieving the ways others failed you. And the truth that hurts but frees is this: the life you want cannot begin until you stop expecting someone else to carry the pieces of you that you are afraid to touch. And once you accept this truth, something subtle begins to change in your posture, in your breath, in your way of seeing the world. You start to understand that taking responsibility for your healing is not a punishment, but an act of profound courage. It means stepping into your own story with the awareness that everything you need already exists in the quiet depths of your resilience and not in the hands of people who may come and go. This truth may sting. It may pierce a part of you that still longs to be rescued, and that longing is human. It is tender. It deserves compassion, but it is not the path. Out of your suffering, the real path begins when you take a step toward yourself, even if that step is trembling, even if it is small, even if it feels uncertain. Because the moment you turn inward with honesty rather than hope for external salvation, something inside you begins to shift, something that has been waiting for years to be acknowledged. If this truth resonates with you, if you have ever felt the weight of waiting for someone to save you, share your story in the comments and subscribe in your own gentle way, so this space can continue offering a home for voices that are learning to free themselves, one quiet realization at a time. There comes a point in a life marked by losses and quiet awakenings when change no longer arrives with thunder or burning revolutions, but with something almost imperceptible, a shift so small it could easily be dismissed as nothing more than a passing thought, a flicker of clarity, a breath that stretches a little deeper than usual, and yet sometimes the smallest internal decision. A decision no one else hears or witnesses becomes the moment that alters the direction of an entire existence. It rarely feels dramatic. In fact, it often appears during the most ordinary moments, when you are folding laundry, or washing a cup, or sitting alone in a room where the light falls just right. And for a second, you sense that something inside you is rearranging itself, like a quiet truth you were not ready for until now. And maybe you have felt this too, a sudden awareness that you can no longer continue living exactly as you have been living. Not because everything is broken, but because something in you is finally ready to stop pretending that you are powerless. The world teaches us to expect transformation to come from the outside, from grand events, from someone arriving with answers from a new opportunity or a sudden blessing. But most real change begins internally, in places no one sees, in the almost invisible moments when the mind whispers enough or the heart insists, "I cannot keep abandoning myself," or the soul quietly says it is time. This internal voice is often faint, drowned out by noise, routines, fear, and exhaustion. But when it speaks clearly for the first time, it becomes impossible to ignore. Imagine a person who has spent years living on autopilot, repeating the same days, the same excuses, the same emotional patterns. And then one morning, while brushing their teeth, they look at their own reflection and feel something unfamiliar. Not shame, not hope, but recognition. A recognition that the person in the mirror is waiting for them to return to themselves, waiting for them to reclaim even the smallest piece of life they have been postponing. This realization does not require a dramatic gesture, but it does require honesty, an honesty that shakes the dust off the parts of you you thought were already gone. Sometimes the moment of change arrives through pain, a memory resurfacing after years of being pushed aside, the sudden fear that time is moving faster than you expected, the awareness that you have been living quietly in the background of your own story. And there is something almost sacred in acknowledging that you want more, even if you do not know yet how to ask for it or build it or hold it. Wanting more is often the true beginning, Not the moment you take action, but the moment you admit the desire you buried under responsibilities and disappointments. Simone Weil believed deeply in the power of attention, the idea that where you place your gaze shapes your entire existence, and perhaps this is why a single shift in attention can feel like an awakening, because for years you may have been staring only at what hurt, at what was missing, at what disappointed you. And then suddenly, your attention moves even slightly toward a new possibility, toward a version of you that has not yet lived, toward a path you had forgotten you once imagined. And this shift creates a ripple, a soft but profound momentum. You may start to notice the small signs that you are changing the way you say no to things you used to tolerate, the way you pause before reacting to an old wound, the way you choose rest without guilt, the way you feel your breath more consciously, the way you reclaim your own time. These actions are tiny, almost invisible, but they are the proof that something inside you has awakened, and that awakening, even if fragile, is more powerful than any external push, because it comes from truth, not pressure. There is something quiet and beautiful about the moment you decide to stop betraying yourself, when you no longer silence your own voice, to make others comfortable, when you stop shrinking, to fit the expectations of people who never understood you, when you finally realize that protecting your inner life is not selfish, but necessary. And this shift, this gentle turning inward, becomes the seed of a new chapter, a chapter that does not need applause or validation, because its power comes from authenticity. One of the most surprising things about inner change is that no one else notices it. At first, the world stays the same, your routines look the same, your responsibilities do not disappear. But something in your posture, something in the air inside your chest, something in the way you inhabit your own skin feels slightly different. And this difference begins to expand silently, day after day, until eventually it reaches your choices, your relationships, your sense of meaning, your entire way of existing. And when this internal shift finally settles you, start to understand that transformation is rarely about becoming someone new. It is about returning to the person you were before. The world taught you to hide before fear, taught you to shrink before time, taught you to settle. It is a gentle homecoming to the self you abandoned out of necessity or confusion or exhaustion. And this homecoming does not require perfection. It requires presence, a presence that says, I am here now, and I choose to live differently, even if the steps are small and uncertain. If you have ever felt that tiny inner shift, that quiet moment when something inside you whispered enough, or begin again, share your story in the comments and subscribe if you wish, so this space can continue growing through the voices of people who recognize the power of these fragile but life-changing awakenings. There is a moment at the end of every long journey when words begin to feel unnecessary, when speaking feels like interrupting something deeper, something that rises from a place inside you that has been waiting quietly for years. And in this moment you realize that not every ending needs an answer, not every truth needs to be explained, not every wound needs to be named. Sometimes what the soul longs for is simply a space where it can breathe without fear, without expectation, without the weight of trying to prove anything to anyone. As you sit with everything you have lived, and everything that has lived inside you, there comes a softening, a loosening of the tightness you carried for so long, the tightness in your chest, in your thoughts, in your memories, and you feel something almost sacred in allowing yourself to just exist without fighting, without pretending, without rushing towards some imagined finish line. This quiet state is not resignation, it is presence. The kind of presence that only arrives after you have walked through your own deserts and returned with a gentler understanding of who you are. You begin to notice the subtle beauty hidden in stillness, the way silence cradles your breath, the way your body settles with gratitude when you stop forcing it to be stronger or faster or younger than it can be, the way your heart softens when you finally stop demanding perfection from yourself and allow your soul to rest exactly where it is. There is a tenderness in this acceptance, a tenderness that feels like a soft hand being placed gently over the years of noise that once dictated your worth. This final moment of quiet is not about giving up, it is about laying down the armor you carried long after you needed it, because somewhere along the way you started mistaking survival for identity. You began to believe that the only version of you that mattered was the one who endured, the one who kept moving, even when every part of you wanted to stop. But now you begin to understand that there is also strength in stillness, that there is wisdom in letting go, that there is a different kind of power in allowing yourself to be held by your own breath. Simone Weil believed that the purest form of attention is a form of love, not a love directed outward, but a love directed inward toward the quiet center of your being, where your truest self has always lived, untouched by disappointment, untouched by fear. And perhaps this moment of silence is a way of returning to that center, a way of placing your attention gently on the part of you that kept going, even when no one saw, even when no one understood, even when you yourself doubted your ability to continue. In this space, you do not ask for anything. You do not bargain. You do not plead. You do not search for meaning. You simply acknowledge the miracle of being here despite everything. And this simple acknowledgement becomes its own kind of prayer. Not a prayer seeking rescue or guidance, but a prayer of existence. A whisper that says, I am still here, and that is enough. And in this whisper, you feel the heaviness soften, not disappear, but soften enough for you to inhale again with a little more peace. You begin to see that survival has shaped you, but it is not the whole of you, that your scars have stories, but they are not your entire story, that the painful chapters do not erase the possibility of gentler ones waiting quietly beyond the horizon. And as you sense this possibility, you allow your breath to deepen, you allow your shoulders to lower, you allow your heart to open by a single fragile inch, and in that fragile inch, an entire world becomes possible. This ending is not a conclusion, it is a quiet doorway, a moment where you stand still long enough to feel gratitude for having reached here, gratitude for every version of yourself that walked this path, even the broken ones, even the tired ones, even the versions you never forgave until now. And from this place, you offer a soft thank you to your own life for not giving up on you, even when you tried to abandon parts of it. And before you leave this moment, carry with you a truth that is easy to forget. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to begin again. You are allowed to exist without performing, without explaining, without rushing. You are allowed to simply be. If this journey touched you, even in a small way, I thank you for being here truly. Thank you. Your presence gives meaning to every word whispered in this space. And if you feel called to continue walking through these quiet inner landscapes with me, you are warmly invited to subscribe and to leave a comment sharing what part of your heart woke up during this video. Your voice matters more than you imagine. And when you are ready, gently lift your gaze to the screen. You will see another video waiting for you, a continuation of this path, a soft step toward the part of you that is still unfolding. Click on it when you feel ready and allow the next chapter to meet you exactly where you are now.